Good evening. So again, we came live for a small discussion and quick discussion on the ISO 9001 clause number 4.4. Now, what is this clause number 4.4? If we're talking about this clause number 4.4 and you have the standard, you can see at there that is the quality management system and its processes. Quality management system and its processes is basically talking about this कि जो भी हमारी क्लॉज की रिक्वायरमेंट्स हैं द ऑर्गेनाइजेशन शैल establish implement maintain the management system and their interaction. सिर्फ इसी लाइन को we have to understand कि organization shall establish, implement, maintain and continually improve a quality management system, including the process needed and their interactions in accordance to the requirement of the international standard. तो 4.4 स्टैंडर्ड को यदि हम देखें तो यहाँ पर सिर्फ हमें यह देखना है कि जो भी हमारे प्रोसेसेस हैं वो प्रोसेसेस हमारे कोरिलेटेड हैं या नहीं हैं, इंटरलिंक्ड हैं या नहीं हैं, और एक प्रोसेस फ्लो डायग्राम पहली बात तो एक ओवरऑल पूरे प्लांट लेवल पे चाहिए, देन इसके बाद हमें उसे डिपार्टमेंट लेवल पर भी प्रोसेसेस की इंटरलिंकिंग वी नीड टू डिफाइन. इफ यू आर टॉकिंग अबाउट दिस organization shall establish, implement and maintain, तो for that matter all the processes first we need to list down and their interaction. किसका इनपुट किसके आउटपुट में जाएगा, किस मशीन या मशीनरी से जो भी हमारा प्रोडक्ट बनेगा वो नेक्स्ट फेज में कैसे जा रहा है, फिर नेक्स्ट फेज से वो नेक्स्ट फेज की मशीन में कैसे जा रहा है. जनरली यदि केबल मैन्युफैक्चरिंग या कोई भी एक एग्जांपल से लें तो वहां पे जो भी कॉपर आता है दैट वाज वेरी हैवी कॉपर, देन उसके बाद एज पर डिजायर्ड साइज हम उसे वहां पर क्या करते हैं, वी ट्रिम डाउन करने के बाद एज पर आवर डिजायर्ड वी मेंटेन आवर स्पेसिफिकेशंस. There is several processes involved in that, like the annealing, then bunching, extruding, detaching, and finished product. If you're talking about all these processes, then we need to see which one is the first process from raw material receiving to delivery dispatch. यदि हम यहाँ पर देखें तो रॉ मटेरियल हमारा क्या आ रहा है, तो वी नीड टू फोकस ऑन द रॉ मटेरियल एक्टिविटीज. जो भी हमारी रॉ मटेरियल की एक्टिविटीज हैं ऑल दीज एक्टिविटी वी नीड टू लिस्ट डाउन. इसका मतलब किस डिपार्टमेंट की बात हो रही है यहाँ पर, रॉ मटेरियल रिसीविंग, इसका मतलब यहाँ पर स्टोर डिपार्टमेंट की बात हो रही है. देन सिमिलरली इफ यू गो टू द नेक्स्ट प्रोसेस तो स्टोर डिपार्टमेंट विल issue the material. At what basis he will issue the material? After the quality inspection. इसका मतलब here incoming inspection of the quality materials has been involved. Then next process will come something like that. After inspection and approval, that product goes to the production section, or production seeks the help of the quality person to approve the material. After that, that material goes to the next process. उसकी handling होगी, or it may be their elongation properties, their manufacturing, process parameters, machine की speed, what is the machine speed, which chemical should we use, which dye we use. Then after that, how many dyes is there, what is the sequencing of the dye, that is also very important. If there is 30 dye, and if we merge or replace one die here and there, then it's obviously the product will not fulfill the requirements, and non-conforming product will achieve. Similarly, if we move to the next process, we need to check here the quality interactions, they are checking. So stores, then something annealing, then all the material goes to the bunching process. At the bunching is the next process, where as per our requirement we need to make the our documents or production and all this thing. Then at there must be a role of the first article report, maintenance, schedule activity, cleaning activity, and what is the RPM of speed? What is the torque of the bunching copper? What is the die we are using? How many turn, how many twist was there? What is the lay length? All this requirement we need to calculate. And on the basis of that, we have to decide that product and how many revolution and how long it machine will run to complete the or fulfill the requirement of the standard bobbin length. After completion, that process that will go to the extruding process, where insulation will be there. So which insulation will be there? What is the color coding? What is the mixing? All this requirement will come at there. And at there we will see after the extruding process, what and how much material that will generate, what scrap should be controlled, and after that that will move to the next process, that is the detaching. Then detaching, at the detaching it will be something we can say at there we need to see at what is the customer length, auto cutter machine is there, labeling, label standards, and then it will move to the next process for the final inspection and go down delivery. If we see all these processes, they are the interlinked process. So have we created any diagram for this? Raw material receiving to outgoing dispatch, and at each processes there has been a sub processes. The processes, that is the annealing, bunching, extruding, detaching, outgoing, inspection, all these are related to the processor. And sub processes, how many bunching machine was there, how many types of product is running at the different kind of machine, and all this requirement will comes under this. If we are creating a document on this, we need to prepare these requirements on the basis of ISO 9001. So it is not the matter of only ISO 9001, and it is never ever mentioned in the ISO 9000 which activity we need to perform. Here is just mention a normal language and normal things. Something, a generic standard line mentioned at there. So if we are talking about this line only, organizations shall establish, implement, maintain, and continually improve a quality management system, including the processes. So what are the processes? We need to define at somewhere their interaction. So we need to define the interactions at each stages. If you go to the processes of the 4.4.1, a point, that is the determine the inputs required and output expected. Now you can see here, determine the inputs required. What are the inputs? Input 1, input 2, input 3, like copper is an input. The solution which is running on the copper, that is the input. Any other kind of dye or processes required at there or chemical required, that is the input, and the output expected from these processes. So at every processes, we need to define that they are processes. So what is this processes? Output expected. What we need actually. What we need actually, that we need to understand first. It is not something like that we give the input and then after that we received any kind of material output and we say, oh, this I want to actually prepare. No, it means what is the input and what is the output, what we want from that. That is the very important. So if we seek all these things requirement, then we understand, determine the inputs required and output expected. Now the other sequence, that is the B point, the determine the sequence and interaction of these processes. Determine the sequence and interaction of these processes. Means we need to first note it down, what are the inputs, what are the processes, then we to define their sequence. So during the audits, it could be audited what is your processes. That's why we need to define the processes and their sequencing also. Not something like that the next process will come earlier and then after that next process go further in the document. No. So this is a major requirement for the audits. So we need to prepare these documents accordingly. For what? Input required and output expected. Determine the sequence and interaction of these processes. Now the C point. Determine and apply the criteria and methods. Now every process is determine and apply the criteria. What is apply the criteria? What is apply the criteria means? If we know the criteria, then we only apply. And methods. So what is the criteria? If you don't know at what speed machine will run, which dye we should use, then how can say what criteria we need to define? So this is a very small language that is mentioned here, apply the criteria. But actually it is very critical point, because at every processes and their sub processes, if we are going to define the criteria, then you can understand at each processes. criteria must be different. For each kind of product, criteria must be different. So, what is the criteria? So first we define the processes, then we need to define the criteria. Processes we can define through process flow diagram, and criteria we can define through control plan. Now, many people say that there is so many criterias at there, like the in powerhouse. There is so we have to define. Otherwise, how we are going to control the process? That's why the reason many a times in the organization there is a very big failure of the breakdowns and all this thing, because we are hiding the problem. And if we are the, we can say, if you are the process owner, and if you we want to run smooth our process, then if we understand all this requirement and all this problem, then we can easily correlate. And if you are manager of the department and we need to handle all these requirements, then what should I do? We have to understand. So if we have knowledge, then I will do to handle my team or handle the process? First, with the honesty, I will create a systematic processes. Then genuinely we will go for the step by step. Define the processes, list down the processes, then define the criteria. What machine is required? For this matter, we can assure a person, we can depute a person to anybody. Just go and check, like if we can assign these things to any engineer or senior engineer or a system manager kind of person. These are the processes. You should go and check what is the machine speed, what is the temperature, what is the process, what is the die using at there, what is the alignment of the XYZ material. He will note it down all these things and maintain a Excel sheet. Then your knowledge also will going to enhance, and your subordinate knowledge also going to enhance. So at that time, it is very, very beneficial for both of you to understand this process. For example, if you are talking about the powerhouse, we can ask any person or engineer or senior engineer, just go to the boiler feeding system. Don't assign him a very big job. Just ask feeding system and ask him to do the Gemba observation at there. These are the processes, how the coal is coming, where coal is going, how both are the interlinking, and when it is dumping at what speed, coal is coming regularly or not, at what frequency coal is coming, coal size is also matters at there, flow of the coal is also matter. So at that a very small sub process, he should observe and note it down his observation. Then you could discuss with this. So like this, you are creating a process and empowering your junior as a senior. He will give some inputs. You can discuss, and then after that, you can conclude a process, their sub processes, their criteria. With this honesty, if you make the documents, obviously we will have a healthy discussion, and knowledge will enhance for the both of the person and even for the others also. So this is one of the example I am sharing today for the process interaction, how the process will help us to understand these things. So Your assignment is just create a processes, note down the processes of your organization or your any kind of activity, and then after that create their sub processes and mention the what is the criteria for each. Like we are preparing the tea, so just we can ask what is the flame, how long it will boil, how much sugar we should insert, tea will tea leaf put in the first, or the sugar will put the first, or milk will first. What will be the first? Define the sequences. Then after that we can define a processes and the SOPs. By this we can understand, and if we create such kind of processes and SOPs, you just take 1 glass of water, like 250 milliliter of the water. Then after boiling 5 minutes on such kind of high flame or low flame, again this is the criteria. Then after that put the sugar in that. Sugar how much, and sugar size is also important, because nowadays sugar is different kind of sugar is coming out there. So we should sugar is the raw material. Then after that we should understand what is the how long it will boil. Then at after 1 minute or 2 minutes we should put the tea leaves, then milk, then how long boiling the tea we need to mix the next raw material. Next raw material could be there, like ginger or elaichi, something kind of thing. And then after that we move to the next process. Key after this we need to boil after 10 to 15 minutes or 5 minutes, and then after that at the low flame, then we need to apply and serve the tea. Like this, we can create the processes, maintain the processes, and generate a system to understand all this. So I think this is an example. On this, we will also share a very common example to understand this sequence of the processes and criteria to understand this thing. So this is, I think, enough for the discussion for the clause number 4.4. Under this clause number 4.4.1, point number A and B we discuss, and hope you will comment below your assignments. Just create that and enjoy the session. Thank you. Thank you so much.